Elizabeth, we're on the Speak Your Truth with Mark Ross podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Mark Ross, of course, and with me this evening is Elizabeth Mikotowicz. Got that right?
Yes,
Okay.
you did.
All right, Elizabeth, you're an author, and I know that you engage with speaking out against people that were, domestically go through domestic violence and abuse
Yes.
and what have you. And you also have a story that can help some people. You have
I hope
stories
so.
within the story.
Absolutely. I was adopted from birth, and like I had really great adoptive parents. Like I lucked out in that aspect. But it wasn't till I got out on my own. I got in some really abusive relationships, and of course I'm neurodivergent, so like normal warning signs would go over my head where like other people like could pick up on things, faster. Like I had to learn the hard way, and I got assaulted pregnant, to the point my skull was showing. And yeah, it basically changed my life overnight. Like I started getting seizures. I would go deaf and blind for moments at a time. I couldn't work anymore. And they prescribed me opioids. And this was 20 years ago, when Big Pharma was still like coming through the back door of our communities, and they hit Maine hard.
Mm,
Um,
mm.
and
How
we
old are
got
you?
I'm 39. I'm about to be 40 in September.
No, I
So
mean, how
yeah.
old were you when you were
Oh,
prescribed?
I was 20, about to be 21, when I got pregnant the second time, and I was put in the hospital. And yeah, literally changed my life overnight. Couldn't work anymore. And when I was in the doctor's office, like first I took the prescribed opioids, and then they're like, all right, we're gonna send you to a pain clinic now. And I'm like, what? Like,
Mm,
I don't want to be on this stuff regularly. Like, I've watched so many people I know, like, their life is shit now because of this. And I was told I was on too small of a dose to get addicted, and that only 2% of people get addicted. And now here it is 20 years later, 1 million Americans are dead, and that's just what they counted. Um, and we know that's not true. And Big Pharma would pay these doctors to lie to people and give over prescribe them this stuff. And now it's the complete opposite. If you need pain medication, you can't get it because the doctors are worried about getting prosecuted. And it's like
mm,
we need to find like a happy medium somewhere,
mhm.
because some people live with chronic pain, and I lived with chronic pain, and it can make you suicidal. It is a miserable, awful way to live. It really does affect your mental health.
Absolutely.
And when I tried to refuse because I was pregnant, the nurse told me that would result in a call to Child Protective Services because I was not following doctor's orders. And I noticed I was no longer on my parents' private insurance. I was on like state insurance. I was in the poor class now. And it was eye-opening, like how much different I was treated. And like, before that, if you said we had, systemic oppression and issues in America, I wouldn't have believed it, because you get indoctrinated your whole life and you see things a certain way, and then
Yeah.
all of a sudden like you're faced with this different reality, and it clashes with everything, and it's very hard to process. Also, I was young and didn't know how to like advocate for myself. Like now I'd be writing medical boards and everything else,
Okay.
if a nurse threatened me like that. But
Okay.
back then I was just a
You
scared
did,
young adult.
you didn't know.
Yeah.
You didn't know.
So I ended up taking it, getting addicted,
Mm.
because that's obviously what happens. And when you have trauma and addiction along with chronic pain, that makes an entirely different monster. Like you're not just dealing with addiction. You're not just
Yeah.
dealing with trauma. These things are intertwined with each other. So that made
Mhm.
my
Mhm.
recovery a lot harder.
I got a
And a
question for you.
therapist.
Oh, go ahead. Go
Oh,
ahead. You can finish it. Finish your statement.
Oh, well, I was just going to say, like a therapist told me that that type of addict is the hardest to treat, and only like 2% of like those type of addicts with with that triangulation of, issues of a diagnosis, only like 2% end up making it. Like, and so I'm going like, well, God, what chance do I have? And, here I am 8 years sober, and, I'm okay, and I made it, and I'm, not where I want to be yet, but, I'm
Hey,
succeeding. Like, I have a book
that's
out,
right.
and
That's
like,
right.
so, oh, what were you going to ask? Right. Before I
I
go
was going,
too
I
much
was
of a
going to
tangent.
say, thank you. I was going to say that there is a problem when it comes to big pharma, and the fact that
Yeah.
when you present yourself with a certain issue and they give you these high level medications, they have side effects.
Yeah.
And then you have to get medications to counter the side
For the side.
effects. And then those medications that you get for the side effects has more side effects. So it's like
Yeah.
you're losing. You're losing.
Exactly. And I read an article about a pharmaceutical technician, and he said that they found a cure for diabetes and a cure for like genital herpes and like genital warts or something. And he brought it to like the bigwigs in the pharmacy company, and they said, well, that's great, but we need you to trash all of that because it curing people loses us money. These band-aid,
Yeah.
treatments that don't fix the problem, they just, help a little bit. That makes
Mm-hmm.
us all the money.
Right.
They don't care about making us better. They care about profiting off of our suffering. And that's one
Yeah.
of the big themes in my book, how the suffering of the American people is a $1 trillion industry. I mean, first they get us addicted. Every 7 to 10 years, there's a new substance out that
Mm.
sweeps America in ways that it never sweeps any other country. And our prison rates go up, the children in foster care, that goes up.
Yep.
After my crime took place in 2011, and the year after that, the children in child protective services went up 13%. So, I mean, you're getting people addicted to lock us up and make us work for pennies a day because the corporations don't even want to pay us a minimum wage, let alone a livable wage. I worked 40 hours a week in prison, made $5.25 a month. That wasn't even enough to buy tampons. So we made our own. And then they use our addiction as an excuse to take our children from us and put them in the system. And instead of and I was too scared to go for help because, the second you report abuse or you report that you're an addict or getting addicted to the medication that the doctor gave you, CPS comes and takes your child.
Yeah. And I want to ask you a question about your story of abuse, because your story started young. You started young, unfortunately, with this cycle of abuse. So talk to me
Right.
about when that started and how that played out for you.
So, I guess I'd have to back it up to when I was 15 with my daughter's father. He was a lot older than me. He was like 22, 23. And, I was having issues at home because I found out my parents weren't exactly truthful about my biological parents. And that caused, adoption comes with trauma no matter what, no matter
Yeah.
how good the
Yeah.
family is. And my parents were great, but they got bad advice. And this was back in the 80s where it was closed adoption, no contact, all that stuff. And now we know that that's incredibly damaging. If you can maintain contact with the kid's parents, that is the best thing for the child. Like, unless if they're a danger or something. And so, and my biological mother, my biological family, all the women in my family have been through horrific abuse with men. And it's funny because they're all MAGA and my adoptive parents are liberals. So like I had these two polar opposite like ideology, political ideologies. And they my biological family, it's all the same. They coddle these awful men and cover up their crimes and abuse and make excuses while they, hand their daughters over on a platter. And, even though I was adopted, it wasn't enough for me to escape that generational trauma. And, it started with a guy that was older than me. And, once I got pregnant, he got pretty rough and started smacking me around. But it wasn't like I could fight back with him. Like he was a scrawny little, he wasn't tough compared to other men, but he could still beat me up.
Right.
But
Let's say if he's scrawny or not, Elizabeth, it's still not cool.
right. No, it's not. And but because I could fight back to a certain degree, like
Sure.
I didn't really process, how dangerous men could be. And then I got with my son's father, and it was like one hit and bone was showing. Like it was just, there was no fighting back. There was no anything. It was just like ragdolled across rooms, with minimal effort. And, it was really scary.
Now,
And
he was one that almost killed you, right?
yep. The head injury almost killed me. It was right there above my right eye. And if that wooden dowel had just been like an inch further down, it would have gone through my eye and I'd be dead. He strangled me to the point my windpipe collapsed. And the medical community says that you can suffocate up to 12 hours after you've been strangled. When in fact, I would have these fits up to 8 months after he did this to me. And my throat would just randomly like collapse in on itself from the damage. And I would have to chug water just to open my airwaves enough to breathe. And this was really scary. Like these fits would go on for like 45 minutes sometimes. Like whenever I got the hiccups, my throat would close in on itself. And it was like no air was getting in or out. And then, like by the time the ambulance showed up, I'd be fine. And they'd be like, you're just having a panic attack. Like, no, I'm not. When you have a panic attack, you're getting too much oxygen and you're like, that's not what was happening. There was no air getting in or out. Like I had to physically drink water, like just to open my throat up. And it would get so bad. Like I drink so much water that like I'd end up throwing up because it was just too much. And then when I went to prison, a girl who was in the house.
Let me stop you right there. Let me stop you right there. Did he get charged?
No. My kid was there. I was too scared that they would take my kid.
And they didn't.
No, I didn't report it. It wasn't until, well, actually, yeah, he did end up getting charged down the road because the final showdown between me and him, where the cops showed up, brought me to the hospital, and he went on the run, got into a high-speed chase with the cops. He did get charged for that, but all of the other stuff he didn't get charged for. Okay. And yeah, and I went to a battered women's shelter in Bangor, and they turned me away with 2 beds open. They said that my injuries were too extensive and it put the other women in the shelter in danger. And, first they called me a liar because I wasn't crying. And I'm like, I'm neurodivergent. Like, I don't express myself the same way as, neurotypicals. Like, I have a lot of, like, delayed, emotional reactions.
Sure.
Compared to other people.
Okay.
And that was literally used against me. I didn't cry on the proper cue, and they chose not to believe me over it. And then I bring all the evidence and the police reports, and they did a complete 180 and said that my injuries were too extensive and that it put the other women in the shelter in danger. So they wouldn't help me. So drug dealers helped me. They protected me. They gave me work because I couldn't hold a job now. like I'd pass out in the middle of the work floor and they thought I was a liability, or I'd miss too many days because of the chronic pain. And
and the seizures, right?
Yeah, the seizures, seizing out on the floor. They thought I was a liability, and it was awful. I basically lost everything. I had to sign my kids over to my father, and I couldn't even like safely care for them now because after the head injury, like I was waking up on the ground not knowing how long I was out for, and I had a toddler running around. And you have to be awake when you have small children because they can get into stuff.
Absolutely.
Everybody knows that. And,
right.
It was just really bad. And eventually I caught drug charges, and I was one of the first people to go to prison over the analog substance law, which they wrote. for bath salts. And like, remember in 2011 when all of those synthetic drugs kind of swept the nation? They were being sold in gas stations and head shops, and anybody could go in and get them. Didn't
Okay.
matter. And
Okay.
they'd have like, they'd call it plant food or bath salts, or whatever,
Yeah.
or just
Yeah.
say not for human consumption. Yeah,
Okay.
they had to write a whole new law because a chemist from Israel, of course, wanted to elevate people's consciousness without it being a criminal matter. So he took illegal substances and he just tweaked them a little bit in a lab, and that, it was a whole new substance, so it wasn't illegal, but it had the same characteristics. So like bath salt is like two components different from crystal meth. And
Wow.
what happened was
Wow.
the guy sold it to these vendors who had them mass produced in China. So it set China right up to be the scapegoat for this whole thing,
Mm.
when in fact it originated elsewhere. Whether he had good intentions or not, it's funny how China or Russia always have to take the fall no matter what. And they, yes, they did mass produce it, but they didn't know the purpose. I don't think they knew the purpose behind it. Like, I mean, they had these vendors from Europe, just making orders, and, then they get blamed for it. I mean, it was just kind of ridiculous to me. And that was like shocking for me, because the whole time, like, until I researched it, like, I thought it was like this Chinese thing going on, and it wasn't. It didn't even originate from there. So they wrote the analog substance law, and that means it's a legal substance, but it has characteristics of an illegal substance. So
Mm.
technically, theoretically, they could charge us with coffee. It's addictive. It makes you go up, whatever. I mean, I don't think they would, because people would be rioting in the streets over that. But like, yeah, it's they wrote this law to
Yeah.
cover, all these new synthetic drugs. And yep, I was like one of the first people to go for that, and I got 3 years in prison. And my book, it's called No Justice, Just Us. My true crime memoir. There's a little bit of a preface, like, explains how I got there. And then the book starts with indictments dropping and me going on the run and, getting arrested, and then everything that happened to me in jail. I
Yeah.
sat with no bail for 16 months waiting to go to prison. And I can't tell you how infuriating it is to sit there for a non-violent drug charge. And I was wrong. I was wrong. I was desperate, in over my head, and I was wrong for selling that stuff. It's terrible stuff. I don't recommend it. And like, I genuinely feel bad for profiting off of people's addiction.
Elizabeth,
But
I have a comment that I want to read to you, and then this is going to pose to my question to you. Okay.
okay.
My comment here, uh, it goes, I was in and out of abusive relationship for many years, and now suffer with fibromyalgia. Many women suffer from autoimmune diseases as a result of toxic relationships. And I say that to
Absolutely.
say this to you, you're dealing with issues because of your uh,
Yeah,
abusive relationships, right?
absolutely.
Yeah, because of you got the seizures and uh, all the other stuff that's going on with you. And I mean,
Yeah.
and you're still not 100%.
No, I still, get seizures randomly. It's very rare now. Um, but like, I mean, I'll randomly lose feeling in my hands, or, like, I'll get really bad ringing in my ears that's like deafening, and it's incredibly painful. Like, and when the weather changes, that triggers the chronic pain really bad. So, it's not as bad as it used to be, thank God, because it used to be 5, 6 times a day. Sometimes I'd be, flopping on the ground, but
Yeah.
now, it's very rare. Like, I have to get incredibly stressed out, or, lack of sleep, to bring that type of thing on.
Yeah.
But yeah, men kill women slowly. Like, if they don't murder us, they kill us slowly.
Yeah. And in your bio, Elizabeth, you mentioned about your you said this. You said we live in a rape culture where 96% of predators don't get arrested and 98% don't go to jail.
Yeah.
What do you think could be done to combat that statistic? Because that's crazy. So I mean,
Yeah.
I can whoop somebody's ass or a woman's ass, and I don't got nothing to fear. Basically,
My mother had a knife held to her throat, and a witness seeing it and reported it to the police in Montana. And the cops said she had to have three um, physical incidents of abuse before she could get a restraining order. And then she tried to leave with the kids, and they were going to charge her with kidnapping her own children. So, because she was not married to him, she couldn't leave the state, without his permission. So, we live in a country that caters to abusers. And, if you get your home broken into, the cop isn't going to go, "Oh, are you sure you didn't like it? Are you sure
yeah.
you didn't like invite him in?" Like, that doesn't happen. You know, Women are expected to prove all of this and cater to these fragile men and their egos. Like, "Oh, well, couldn't you have just like said it nicer?" No, because you don't take me seriously if I'm nice. Like, it's just ridiculous. And
Hmm.
it's we also have a problem, like Florida is known for this right now. There's a viral creator, Viking Mindset. He's sitting in jail right now because a doctor told him to report his son getting molested, and they
Oh,
arrested him
oh my
for
goodness.
false witness statements. And that's all getting charged. But he's been sitting in jail for the last 6 months
Good.
for trying to advocate for his child. And another little girl in Florida was getting raped by her guardian, 17 years old, and they charged her with false witness. So Florida loves to brag about, "Oh, we castrate sex offenders." Well, you charge the victim, so you don't have to.
Mm, mm,
Like,
mm.
and then the little girl who got raped, she set up a video camera and because she knew it was going to happen to her again. So she
Mhm.
got the proof for the cops, and they charged her with illegal surveillance. So, until we have a system that believes women and actually holds these predators accountable, we're never going, for instance, I was in solitary. There was a predator above us screaming through the vents all of his crimes against children and how he was getting out the next day and how he was going to find another little boy and go rape him.
Wait a minute, you were
We
in
were
prison? You were in the co-ed prison?
No, no, no. In solitary, they have the men above us, so we could talk to them through the vents.
That's what I'm saying. You were in the
But
co-ed facility, correct?
in the county jails, yeah, they are co-ed,
Okay.
but you're not like like the pods aren't co-ed.
Okay.
Like the
Right,
actual
right, of
prison
course.
pod,
Of course.
you're in there with all women. But
That
there
would
was
be a
a
problem.
predator. Yeah, there was a predator telling us what he was going to do to little boys when he got out, and we told the cops this. When it comes to snitch culture, there's no such thing as snitching on a predator. No such thing as that. And the baddest gangster will tell you the same thing. We told the cops this, and they told us to stop harassing him. He started it. He was screaming about it. Like, we didn't even know he was there until he started like openly discussing this. And this is in my book too. They let they somebody else on probation was talking about doing drugs on the phone, just getting high, only harming themselves. They revoked their probation and held them in jail for even talking about getting high. But a predator who talks about harming a little boy gets let out. No charges filed, no probation revoked, nothing. And the problem is they don't make money off of predators. They make money off of drug dealers and everybody else.
Why is that?
Well, because they give us longer sentences, and
Mm.
they can you know,
Mm-hmm.
put us on a bunch of medications that we don't actually need, and make money off us that way. You know, predators, they usually have to put them in solitary and keep them away from everybody. They can't put them in general pop. They can't put them
No, you
out to
cannot.
work.
No, you
They
cannot.
can't put them in the community to go work at corporations for pennies a day. You
No.
know, it's not, they're not making them money. You know, and also the most powerful people right now, since those files came out, it's been proven that most of them are predators. So why wouldn't they have a system that caters to predators?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm gonna read something to you, and based from this, I'm gonna ask you a question. This is some information that I did some research on regarding incarcerated women. Up to 94% of incarcerated women have histories of prior physical or sexual abuse.
Oh wow. I thought it
What?
was only 70%.
No, it
Wow.
says 94. Now,
Oh wow.
this was from
I
a few
believe it.
years ago. What I looked at, and it goes further. Once inside, women account for a disproportionate amount of sexual assault victims,
Yep.
with 67% of staff on inmate sexual victimization
Yep.
victims being female.
Yep.
Despite women making up a much smaller fraction of the overall correctional population. This was back in 2017. So my question to you
Actually,
is, based on that, what did you witness?
at the prison I was at, the captain and four of his subordinates all ended up finally getting arrested, for raping and stalking over a dozen women inmates, and the guy only got 10 years. Had those been civilian women, he would have gotten life. Um, Predators flock to these institutions for employment, whether
Mm,
it's the juvenile, the
mm,
kids that are locked up, or
mhm.
it's the women, because you have your pick of a perfect victim that no one's going to believe and nobody cares about. I had
Oh,
conservative women telling me, if you don't want to get raped in prison, don't go to jail.
mm,
If you don't want to get raped by cops, don't go to jail. Just
mm,
say you're okay with certain people getting raped, because that's what you mean.
mm.
And
And
that is absolutely true. There's a chapter in my book called White Christmas. It's about a juvenile they brought with us. This happens a lot, way
you
more than it should.
yes,
And
yes.
they would bring the juveniles with us because, when they got to be too much of a problem, um, they'd have to get rid of the problem. So this one little girl kept getting raped by high-ranking officers,
Mm,
and she finally snapped and stabbed one of them. So they brought her with us.
mm.
Um,
What happened to the CO?
Nothing. Nothing
Mm,
ever happened. You
mm,
can file a PREA complaint. That stands for Prison Rape Elimination Act. I was forced to strip in front of cameras under duress of being maced and extracted, and I filed one of those PREAs just to see what would happen. I wanted to do a little experiment for my book. Um, I was at Alderson, the same place where that captain and four of his subordinates all got jammed, had a whole conspiracy of rape going on.
mm.
Um, they got the response back from Somerset County, and Somerset County admitted to everything I was complaining about. Kind of like this administration, how they're openly saying, like, speaking about all the crimes they're committing, and they think that makes them innocent. So they admitted to everything I was complaining about, and then they deemed it unfounded. They said, yeah, we didn't do anything wrong. So that stops it from going to an outside source. So first of all, these rapists get to investigate their own crimes. Sound familiar? A lot of
Mm.
what we're seeing right now.
What we see right now.
So it
Yeah, yeah.
stops it from going to an outside source. When Alderson got the complaint back, they wouldn't even allow me to hold it, let alone read it myself. They read it to me and then said I couldn't have a copy. So when you get out, the first thing they ask for is, was there an outcry at the time? Did you report? Did you go up the chain of command? Yes, I did, but they wouldn't give me the paperwork to prove it. And by law, they have to give you the paperwork upon request, but
Absolutely.
there's no consequence if they don't. So when I requested it from Somerset County, they said, we already gave it to you. No, you didn't. You gave it to the prison, who would not allow me to have it. And
Mm.
these prisons cover for each other.
Mm.
It's
You
not just, you're already completely dehumanized, so who cares if somebody breaks you more type deal. And
speaking
that's
of
what
that,
happens.
oh,
Yeah,
I'm
that's
sorry.
what happens.
Yeah. Speaking of that, you mentioned too with me in our initial interview that you met women that were sterilized against their will.
Yep, I
Talk
did.
about that.
And they weren't white like me. I was in Oklahoma and there was this girl who was like weepy all the time and she looked some type of Spanish, Latina. And she was always cradling her stomach and she would just kind of hang out in her room. And I was like talking with one of her friends and I was like, is she all right? And the girl had like a thick, Spanish accent and she goes, the doctor stole her womb in
Whoa.
the other facility. And like she
Whoa.
had been planning on getting out and having a baby with her husband, and she was just devastated by it. And you hear about these things happening to the migrants. They've been doing this to American women of color for the whole time. The whole
Absolutely.
time.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
grew up thinking that racism and the systemic issues were over in America. And then I go to prison and I see this shit. And I'm like,
Firsthand. Yeah. Yeah.
what is happening? Like that's in my book too. So yeah, I trigger warning to any abuse survivors out there. It is a heavy, raw, brutal read in some parts. I will give you that fair warning, but it's one of those things like I felt it had to be done.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, how did you rebuild yourself when you got out of prison?
So it was really hard because I was misdiagnosed with bipolar disorder and they had me on all these medications that I didn't need that eventually put me in psychosis. And it took me a long time to like get back to normal. But yeah, I stayed the hell away from all of my old associates. I didn't go back to drinking or, I smoke weed because it helps with chronic pain and, all the issues I have,
Yeah.
and it's harmless. So, I basically became a recluse and just kind of did my art. And then the pandemic hit and I started doing art shows in the community and like getting back into writing my book because like I writing it down was fine, but sitting there and editing and going through it all again, like that was the hard part for me. And yeah, but yeah, now like I work with state reps to get better bills on the table, and like we actually got a bill passed in Maine mandating all jail facilities provide tampons and pads free of charge for women. Like we were making our own tampons, working 40 hours a week, making $5.25. That wasn't even enough to buy tampons. Like, and I'm so sick of
Mhm.
these conservatives going, oh, well, inmates get free health care and free food. Why can't our kids have free lunch? Like, inmates work 40 hours a week for nothing.
Mhm.
And if you want, like, if you're advocating for people starving to death, you're sick because they have no way to get anything for themselves. They're locked in. You're at the mercy of the CO. Like, if you don't want to pay for people's health care, let them out of prison. I can't tell you how many people I watched die because of very treatable, stuff. Like one girl went into labor and we almost rioted. The only reason they brought her to the hospital is because we were literally going to tear that unit apart. Like we flipped out, and that was the only almost riot I was like involved in prison. It was over them not taking a girl in labor to the hospital. And then they tell this girl, if it's a false alarm, we're going to put you in solitary to punish you. Like for all of you women out there, like you've had babies, like how many of you have had a false labor alarm? Like Braxton hit, that's normal.
Mm.
Like most women go to the hospital at least 2 or 3 times thinking they're in labor when they're not. Like, and to threaten somebody with solitary confinement, like the level of depravity that our nation is on and that we are like so desensitized to, like, I mean, it will be studied one day.
Mm.
I can guarantee you that the sociopathy in this country will be studied one day.
It has to be. It has to be. What talk about your book, No Justice, Just Us. What
Yeah.
prompted you to write that book?
Well, so the very first cell I was in, somebody wrote on the wall, there's no justice in the system. It's just us in the system. And it stuck with me.
Mm,
And, I slowly realized like what, that was about. And, it started with me wanting to, turn a negative into a positive and, do something with my time. And then the more horrible shit I saw, you know, the more it became like a call to action. Like, I have to do this. Like, I have to expose this. Like,
mm, mm,
people think like you just go to jail and like the second you're labeled a criminal or a junkie or a gang member, like nobody cares what happens to your human rights. And that's the problem in this country. That's why it was so easy, for them to escalate their depravity and cruelty to these ice camps. Like
mm.
they're literally rounding people up because they're brown and like people are shocked about it. And I'm like, they've been doing this for since day one, guys. Like, come on. They've just rebranded it. Like the 13th Amendment says we can't have slavery, but we can have mass incarceration. And you can put them to work if you just give them a crime. So they criminalized everything.
Mm,
We
mhm.
have more prisons than we do colleges. Like that's not a flex.
No, not at all. And it goes to what you were saying in your bio that mass incarceration is nothing but rebranded slavery.
Absolutely. Like this nation was built on genocide and slavery, and nothing has changed.
Nothing.
You know, we're still harming people. Like they just found last year, they just found a mass grave behind a Mississippi jail of 700 mostly black men. And I know some conservative out there is gonna be like, oh, there were like 5 white guys in there. It was mostly black men. So come on now. Like
Yeah,
that's racially motivated.
absolutely. Absolutely. Uh Now with your book out, do you have any other future projects?
Yeah, so there will be a part two to this book. This is basically like through my entire court case, and then it ends with me arriving at prison. And like I could have shortened it, but I didn't want to because like I feel like all of it is valid and it all needs to be said. So I just broke it off into 2 parts, and I'm not really sure when the next one is, when part two is going to come out, but yeah, stay tuned because it was a wild ride. Like I was in there with do you remember that horrible church shooting where the white supremacists walked in and just, blew 9 black people away in their place of prayer? It was down in like West Virginia or something, somewhere
Or
down there.
somewhere West or South Carolina or something like that. But yeah,
Yeah,
I think
like I the minister who was the victim of that and like prayed for the guy. His
mm,
daughter was in my unit when this happened, and
mm,
like I became friends with her, and like we had this whole ceremony for the victims, and she sang and she talked about her dad, and it was just crazy. Like it was it was absolutely wild. Like some of the things I'm like, I swear I was here to like just bear witness to this and like tell this story sometimes.
wow. Well, here's a better question I have for you. If you had an encouraging message to share with those that are going through abuse, it doesn't matter, what would you say to them that could help them?
It will never get better. It will only get worse.
Ooh.
And you are in the most danger leaving. Like you're 7 times more likely to die when you're
Mm,
trying to leave. And that's why so many women don't leave.
mm,
I mean, I hate that question. It's so misogynistic. Well, why'd you stay? Well, when I tried to leave, I got beaten and raped and held hostage in my own home for 3 days.
hmm.
Like, when he said he was going to kill me because he had already put me in the hospital with my skull showing, I believed him. Like, that's why.
Mm, yeah. Wow. And you're right. it only get worse. But what does it take for somebody to get out of that vicious cycle? I mean,
Sometimes it takes resources, because it's not just about the physical abuse, it's about the financial abuse. He stole every dime I had.
mm,
I couldn't have a text message without him going through my phone and, interrogating me and controlling every aspect of my life. And,
mm,
that other thing, victims don't come forward because they know their kids are going to get taken. Like, if there's a consequence, for asking for help, people aren't going to ask for help.
yeah, yeah. Elizabeth, how can people contact you?
I am on Instagram and TikTok, and I go live every Monday with Matt Gromlick, from 7 to 9. My handles are EPM underscore art underscore 1111. And we would love to have y'all. He's running against Micro Dick Johnson in Louisiana. We are trying to take, yes, that's right. They can come up with mean names, so can I.
It, at first I was like, did she say what I thought she said?
Usually I use the crawfish emoji for it. Like in the
Oh,
flyers for the
oh,
live, I'll put micro and then put a crawfish emoji.
oh.
But yeah, we've got some crazy corruption going on down in Louisiana, and
Oh, man, you
we'd
guys
love
are
to tell you all about it.
you guys
So
are
come
just
join
ripe
us.
with it, ripe
Oh,
with
yeah,
the
it's
oh,
wild down here. I never seen nothing like it in my life. They tossed out 42,000 mail-in ballots. I'm like, you guys know those were like Republican voters too. Like, you threw your own voters' ballots in the trash. They purged 500,000 active voters to inactive. And just to redraw the maps to completely dilute black voting power. And ugh. I'm like, they're like, well, and then they have their base thinking that they're like making things right, that black people had like extra voting power because of it. And it's like, no, they didn't. They had 1/3 of they make up 1/3 of Louisiana, and their section had 1/3 of the voting power, which is what it should be. And you redrew these lines and split these districts up, so now their votes are just diluted by, white people and conservatives. I don't know. There's 1% more Democrats registered in Louisiana than Republicans. So honestly, like, I think the tides have turned. And like last election, they were running out of ballots at the voting polls in Louisiana. And I'm just like, I've never seen nothing like it. So it's everybody keep your eyes on Louisiana, because if Republicans get in office, this is coming your way. This type of corruption is coming your way. They
mm,
do anything Trump says. Trump told them to do it, and they did it. But
right.
we do have petitions going to remove him and Liz Muriel from office. So that's good.
All right. Elizabeth, it has been a pleasure talking with
Absolutely. I had a blast.
you. I wish we could go longer, but I don't have any more questions to ask. It's dark out where you are, so
No,
hey. And just think, when we started talking, it was bright.
I
So
know, right? Well, hey, everybody, go check out my book, No Justice, Just Us. It's on all the major platforms. The paperback is currently only on Amazon. I'm having a little bit of formatting issues, but I will get it on the rest of the platforms. I also do custom art, gigs if you guys need portraits or anything like that. And I also do speaking events. Like, if you want me to come talk to your people and educate them about this stuff, I absolutely will. And
mm,
if you are in crisis, whether it's addiction or domestic violence, and you need someone to talk to, I will talk to you and I will talk you through it. And I will not snitch you out to the authorities that will take your kids away. I will help you make a plan, because a lot of times it is just making a plan,
mm,
and it's too overwhelming. And, abuse affects the front of the brain, where that that does planning and decision making. And, that's why it's also so very hard for abuse victims to get out, because they've literally dealt with an ongoing brain injury from the trauma and the horrible things that have happened. And I've been through all of it, and I will do what I can to help you. So if you are in that situation, keep your head up. It is not you, it is them, and you deserve better. Bottom line, you deserve better.
You do. You do. You do. And the only person that can make that happen is you.
Absolutely. And it's okay to need help. Just know who you're asking for help, because sometimes the wrong help will make it worse. So
yeah. Elizabeth Mikotowicz, thank you for taking the time to speak with me on this good evening, and I wish you success on your book, and
thank you.
I wish you good writing on your next book.
It's already written. I just gotta edit it. Back to the editing.
Indeed. Well, thank you, Elizabeth, again, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for watching this great interview. My name is Mark Ross, and this has been another episode of the Speak Your Truth with Mark Ross. And as always, it's okay to not be okay. Just do something about it. Thank you, Elizabeth. And you have a good evening.
You too.
Ladies and gentlemen, you guys have a good evening as well. Everybody take care. Bye-bye now.